Hymns of Gritsamada, translated by Sri Aurobindo, from Mandala 2, Sukta 3. The fire that was set inward in the earth is kindled and has arisen, fronting all the worlds. He has arisen, the purifying flame, the priest of the call, the wise of understanding, the ancient of days. Today let the fire in the fullness of his powers, a god to the gods, do sacrifice. Fire who voices the godhead, shines revealing the planes, each and each. High of ray he reveals each and each, the triple heavens by his greatness. Let him flood the oblation with a mind that diffuses the light, and manifest the gods on the head of the sacrifice. O fire, aspired to by our mind, putting forth today thy power, do sacrifice to the gods. O thou who wast of old, before aught that is human, bring to us the unfallen host of the life gods. And you, O powers, sacrifice to Indra, where he sits on the seat of our altar. O Godhead, strewn is the seat on this altar, the hero-guarded seat that ever grows, the seat well packed for the riches, anointed with the light. O all gods, sit on this altar seat, sons of the indivisible Mother, princes of the treasure, kings of sacrifice. May the divine doors swing open wide to our call, easy of approach, with our prostrations of surrender. May they stretch wide, opening into vastnesses, the imperishable doors, purifying the glorious and heroic kind. Milch cows, good milkers, pouring out on us may night and dawn, the eternal and equal sisters, come like weaving women full of gladness, weaving out the weft that is spun, the weft of our perfected works, into a shape of sacrifice. The two divine priests of the call, the first, the full in wisdom and stature, offer by the illuminating word, by the illumining word, the straight things in us, sacrificing to the gods in season. They reveal them in light, in the navel of the earth, and on the 3 peaks of heaven. May Saraswati, affecting our thought, and goddess Ila and Bharati, who carries all to their goal, the three goddesses, sit on our altar seat and guard by the self-law of things our gapless house of refuge. Soon there is born a hero of golden red form, an aspirant to the godheads, a mighty bringer of riches and founder of our growth to wideness. Let the maker of forms loosen the knot of the navel in us. Let him set free the issue of our works. Then let him walk on the way of the gods. The plant is with us, streaming out the wine. Fire speeds the oblation by our thoughts. Let the divine achiever of works understanding lead the offering triply revealed in his light on its way to the godheads. I pour on him the running light, for the light is his native lair. He is lodged in the light is his plane. According to thy self-nature bring the gods and fill them with rapture. O male of the herd, carry to them our offering, blessed with Svaha. There is a pregnant and pointed phrase of universal awakening uttered, one would say, by Pythagoras, that our good is closer to us than we know. That the uncaused cause is all present, is muse and realization, undisrupted seat and soul and connection and course that gives life to its fulfillment and expression and happening through all things, means that this is omnipresent, the full and supernal truth, the full and supernal fulfillment of relation in its own comprising and measure. But if there is something that contains in its own reality, in its own self-law, in its own being of state, of unalienated possession of witness, the connection and continuum and possibility of rousing to the full condition and course of life undivided in and of and through its awakened bounds, if there is a competency of nature, if there is a non-duality that lies at the seat and soul and function of all things, then it follows that this must be invoked, this must be inherited. The full intensity and directness of its living life of full and unalienated affirmation must be lived. So the greater the naturalness, the greater the directness of full association of being, in continent cause, in unalienated richness, in directness of comprehensive provision to that which begins to be consciousness, which begins to be wakefulness, which begins to be the foundational expression of that uncaused cause in its full truth and seat and soul of witness and comprising. And so we often forget as well that this closeness of the uncreate, of the unborn, is closer to things and more present as them than we hardly ever even begin to fathom. For that something like an organism's accentuated expression allows us to see has the full continent cause behind it, and as it, and meeting it, with the nature of its self-reality above self, above accident, above station, connecting in harmony, uncreate through uncreate, into its living and vibrant end, a full undisplaced union in the whole and supernal which lives through it, means that in this condition of harmonization, its relation to itself comes congruent, entire, living and present, equal to the end of the atmosphere of its interaction, equal to the end of the sky, in its life and light and love and being and consistence in that truth of universality which alone secures the connection, fruition, and fulfilled play of function that can sense the alignment in its own reality, in its own living end, as the culmination of its expression, interaction, seat and soul and source of witness. So sensing that end in itself awakens the closest of the close, the undifferentiated possession of reality of principle, which is the guide, the companion, the seat and soul and source, which only in this uncreate through uncreate, in this undivided self-law, which has no separated reality from that which is its life, could awaken to the foundational and archetypal whole, in and of and through its full lived dimension of expression and witness. And the intuited rousings, the intuited awakenings, the intuited sense of all these currents and conditions and margins being possessed in this reality, possessed in this liberation, possessed in this truth of being and cause, has to be inherited and lived directly. And the full articulation and expression and gaining choir and course leaves its felt vibrancy, its living delicacy, its invitation of richness, comprehending all things and lying to the heart of all things, and rousing to its own message of liberation, of life enlivened. Throughout, I think, in what we see speaking its own meaning before us. So, Sukta 3. The fire that was set inward in the earth, in manifestation, is kindled and has arisen, fronting all the worlds. He has arisen, the purifying flame, the priest of the call, the wise of understanding, the ancient of days. So that everywhere, in all things and all happenings, there is this living churning of ambrosia in and of and through the uncaused cause, that which is turned inwards unto the truth and eminence in manifestation, and fulfills this functioning of its own arising, purification, conversion to its seat and soul and source of energy, and acting as the priest of the call in its own continent constellation, which fulfills and awakens the muse and term of the unbroken mother of its full birth and entire capacity, to a truth beyond the accidents of all these expressions, rises in intuitive moment and meaning and merit, signification and fulfillment, herein and hereof. For the greatest fulfillment, if nature is uncaused, and as we grow to see in the heart of all things, is that the effect reveals its cause. The effect comes to be not separated, but the full revealing of the whole, of the cause, of the perpetual wedding, of the undying truth, of the connection to the life undivided, in this only in its full self-law, gains the whole in the whole, above and behind and through, and nourishing and sustaining, and being participant to that universal choir, that universal mystery, that universal unseparated life in life enlivened, which has the affiliation to full possession, end, and undivision, with no abstraction from the truth and seat and source and soul of founding. And hence all this condition, all this capacity, all this rousing and witness and intuition, and calling for the full truth of all nature to express itself to the fulfillment of its reality, to the fruition of our own life's margin, requires such a constant presence, cohesion, connection, recollection and witness of call and cause. The fire that was set inward in the earth is kindled and has arisen, fronting all the worlds. He has arisen, the purifying flame, the priest of the call, the wise of understanding, the ancient of days. His days, his wholes, are timeless, all-containing. Today let the fire in the fullness of his powers, in the richness of his directness, in the truth of his omnipresent entirety, a God to the gods, the full divine measure in this full divine condition, do sacrifice. For in what was spoken of before, each organism, each instance and manifestation fulfills the ripple in unborn relation to its end, which overtakes its origin, end, and full dimension of happening. So the full note of harmonization becomes a sacrifice, an oblation, a free giving that awakens the greater universal of its own truth in that own truth, and that own truth's full expression throughout. Fire, who voices the Godhead, shines revealing the plains, each and each. High of ray he reveals, each and each, the triple heavens by his greatness. For in the condition of the water, the wave is real. Every dimension, only in that requirement and occupation, is made realized. Its term of more partial conditions become real in that inhabitation and articulation. And so every dimension, every communion, every harmonization, each and each life and life, the full dimension of occupied reality of the whole, is revealed in and of his unremoved greatness. Let him flood the oblation with a mind that diffuses the light and manifests the gods on the head of the sacrifice. So this supernal participation, this residence in the uncaused cause, attains this undiminished, unconditioned, full connection and truth and measure that surpasses all dimensions and aspects, makes new life and life in its moment and time. O fire aspired to by our mind, put forth today thy power, do sacrifice to the gods, O thou who wast of old before aught that is human. This center and seat and soul and source is that which is our full good, contains our full good, is anticipated, is intended, is roused and awoken to. And in its being before and after, the comprehension and the connection of condition, the fusion and the forge, and the mantle in which that is sown, truth and fulfilled access is enlivened. Bring to us the unfallen host of all this that connects life's measure, of the life gods, and you, O powers, sacrifice to Indra, where he sits on the seat of our altar, the holder of this connected lightning and possessor at the basis of all rotation and persona's fulfillment. O Godhead, strewn is the seat on this altar, the hero-guarded seat that ever grows, the seat well packed for the riches, anointed with the light. O all gods sit on this altar seat, sons of the undivisible mother, princes of the treasure, kings of sacrifice. So a higher and greater and present truth of that the good is closer to us than we can know, is that what holds people back is they don't believe in the depth and truth and directness of full access to living liberation and entire reality. This eminence in presence that is necessary to the heart of all things, in its perennial and living expression of full discovery, in the harmonization of this choir overtaking, is strewn on this altar, is the full harmony's inhabitation to the full witness of all things. And joining unto that whole, joining into that life of life, is that hero-guarded seat that ever grows, the seat that is well packed for the riches, is requiring and continent and plentiful and sustaining to the full measure which to its purpose is to be founded, and is anointed, drawn forward, blessed with simplicity, positivity, directness of existence's unparted witness, and light. O all gods sit on this altar seat, sons of the indivisible mother, princes of the treasure, kings of sacrifice. This invocation of the full unparted truth comes to be the reality of all of own reality, own nature, and our own fulfillment of nature, who is called upon to be true children to this indivisible mother, true princes of the treasure in royal and living connected access and inheritance, and become in the command that voices itself in life and life awoken kings of sacrifice. And so this parting of the divine door, this unbolting the barred gate, which justice sits enthroned unto the hearts of all, in one current of expression of Parmenides, is omnipresent, is omni-enthroned. And so may the divine doors swing open, wide to our call, easy of approach with our prostrations of surrender, for only this greater harmony in its greater reality, and our being contained in that love tide, communicates to the truth before and beyond accidents through all margins. May they stretch wide, opening into vastnesses, our very perception, our very connection, our very opening this door, our not breaking the word's full meaning in its aspiration mind upon mind in unbroken truth. May they stretch wide the opening into vastnesses, the imperishable doors, purifying the glorious and heroic kind. For this opening of the door has to be imperishable, that which gives the guide and seat and soul, whole on whole, companion, pillar, soul and way of witness enlivened to the truth beyond accidents of all things, must exist beyond those accidents. Milch cows, good milkers, pouring out on us, may night and dawn, the eternal and equal sisters, come like weaving women full of gladness. May the meditation and nourishment of meditation, may Gnostic communion, may integral realization, may partaking to the divine and uncreate soul and core and essence, at the speaking witness and heart of all things, both the peace of the full dimensions measure like night, and the living glow of anticipation like dawn, connect to that which fronts all the worlds, and come like weaving women full of gladness, weaving out the weft that is spun, and weft the weft of our perfected works into a shape of sacrifice, merging all instantiation, all cause of our manifestation, into the shape of this perfect note, this perfect sacrifice, this perfect enactment, this perfect integration to these true nourishing conditions of fulfilled witness and affiliation of being united. The two divine priests of the call, the first, the full in wisdom and stature, offer by the illumining word the straight things in us. This direct harmonization's conception, this direct unparted conditions full affiliation, origin and end and state of true nature's comprising, offers the straight thing, the harmonized note, the universal conception's measure, in unparted relation of fulfillment in truth. Sacrificing to the gods in season, they reveal them in light, in the navel of the earth, and on the three peaks of heaven. It becomes that which is the navel of nourishment of manifestation, and is revealed self-luminous beyond the peaks of the aspects of manifestation. May Saraswati affecting our thought, and Goddess Ila and Bharati, who carries all to their goal the perfection of articulation and sustainment of harmony's conception and unborn condition and course, the three goddesses sit on our altar seat and guard by the self-law of things our gapless house of refuge. For if this harmonization was not uncaused and living in the uncaused, if it did not have that pertinent presence of exclusive fulfilling relation to the uncreate truth of entirety, then it would not be continent in itself. It would not have the capacity for its expression of its wave to be life and spirited and utilized in full purposeful self-law to the undivided whole, which in the universals now contains every aspect of creation in its eternity, becomes more now and more present than all the aspects of its accidents and time, overcomes all aspects and becomes the supernal and positive inherent truth of all those aspects of the wave in the whole of its own and unalienated reality. And hence the gapless house of refuge, that which is our full intention, that which is our full home, that which is our full object, in only such a truth of inherent and fulfilled and awakening reality, comes home, can awaken home, and bring us home through our fulfilled self-nature, liberating an active connection of truth to a beatitude of undivided reality. And hence in this soon there is born a hero of golden red form, self-luminous and yet energized in being's purpose, an aspirant to the godheads, just as the thought breaks forth in the truth of the mind, a mighty bringer of riches and founder of our growth to this undiminished truth in wideness. Let the maker of forms loosen the knot of the navel in us. If something is truly unconditioned, its full nature comes to be of full presence and requirement and solution. Hence the maker of forms loosens the knot of the navel in us, becomes the solution supernal on supernal to the full horizon's aspect in our life and soul, recollection and assumption of seat. Let him set free the issue of our works, the full dimension of universal constellation being borne up in unborn entirety. Then let him walk on the way of the gods, being him and him, it and it, the full dimension and horizon and perfection of unborn and non-dual measure, which overtakes the seeing and the witness, the intuition and the aspect, the knowing and the known, and overcomes to its full and purposeful expression of inclusive entirety. And hence this nourishment, this communing, this fountain or reverse of the fountain plant, being harmonized to that which is the root of all nourishment, intoxication, and eternal entirety, the plant is with us streaming out the wine. Fire speeds the oblation of our thoughts, this infinite and divine and uncreate occupation of residence of measure becomes God's speed and God's entirety, God's completeness of conception, and God's connection of unborn continence of witness. Fire speeds the oblation by our thoughts. Let the divine achiever of works, understanding, lead the offering triply revealed through every dimension of existence and communion of presence and aspect of cause in his light on its way to the godheads. His way and his way, the self-liberation of that which was the self-law at the heart of self-nature and truth of uncaused entirety, in its perennial and perpetual comprehending and inherent way, brings the full revelation of being and timeless truth and entirety, revealing in his light on its way to the godheads. The continent full inclusion of its unobjectified depth united, and hence partaking, revealing unto this truth and soul of the way and witness and aspect which is present to the containing reality at the germ and soul and fruition of all things, we awaken. And so I pour on him the running light, for the light is his native layer, this undefiled positivity of its own consistent entirety. He is lodged in the light is his plane, his means of assumption, association, and continent, occupation of limit. According to thy self-nature, thus it speaks to all in the truth of the heart of ourselves. Bring the gods, bring the divine mention that is at the back of your conception, and fill them with rapture. Give them to their entirety of full communicating enwrapment, unborn and uncreate, and fulfilling the continent and fulfilled witness of truth of entirety. According to thy self-nature, bring the gods and fill them with rapture. O male of the herd, carry to them our offering blessed with Svaha, this universal harmonization, renunciating the note in the truth of its archetype, of that fulfilled witness of all entirety. And so we can say, as there is an unborn and alive access which is at the origin and end and comprehension and containment to the heart and soul of unalienated truth in all things, as there has to be an alive connection to the reality of the water to give any expression to what we may momentarily see as the wave, so this full possession, this full inspiration of the uncaused and universal and omnific and perfect and pertinent and present measure always has to be awoken, always has to be lived, has to be containing and contained and liberated to the uncaused fruition of the fulfillment of life. That which is at the back of the manifestation being its inheritance of its connection and seat and fruition and soul of fulfillment and function, reality and integration and witness. For coming to that which is beyond the aspects and inherits it in a live connection of truth is surely only that which can self-liberate an undivided truth of connection of entirety to that uncaused and fulfilled measure. And hence that requirement, that living integration, that which is the truth above the contingent aspects of the limits of manifestation state, and which expresses itself in its richness beyond containing all their accidental measures, is that which is the pilgrim, is that which is the call, is that which is the possession of the pertinent and continent truth and soul of witness of all entirety. And hence, if that reality of being doesn't have a connection in you that can form the bridge, that can form the conception, that can form the traversing to the fulfillment of the other shore, if it's to be dissipated, if it's to be broken unto parts, not lived in full recollected, continent and comprehensive truth, then you are perpetuating, you are projecting, you are denying what is most requisite, inherent, alone communicating, and essential. And so coming to the essence and soul of source, reality, our own self-nature, the access to unlocking this door which everywhere lies open to our awakening to the life and life universal, has always been that which, beyond the aspects of its expression animating every single pulse and fruition and current of expression and founding, has carried more deeply, has carried more enlivenedly, has carried more perfectly, has carried more freely, without force, without accident, without incident, and without trace, to the fulfillment of human revelation, of human endeavor, of undenied and integrated fulfillment of what nature has to be fulfilled in us, and which attains all those accidents without going anywhere, which contains the whole field by living to its fruition in the seed. And so this direct truth, this direct articulation, ancient of days, timeless of measure, purposeful of message, and continent of truth, like a rousing, carries no phantoms of accidents or dislocation upon us, but gives self to self, reality to realization, that is which is continently real and omnipresent to its own condition of truth and seat and soul, of relation of measure, that is purposeful, uncoerced, unpossessed, and unforced. And so this tradition, as I've said, which in my humble opinion contains the highest phenomena of integrating, realizing, manifold fulfillment and expression, in such a tradition and contours which spread itself perennially like the human breast's own fulfilling state of undefiled assumption, quiring and integrally communing to its undivided truth in such expressions, gives those expressions to connect to the enablement of reality's form in us, and typifying them by accidents or people who didn't understand the full depth of supersession's measure, wisdom and piety and integrity, and full corridor of wakening life to that which must be roused. In such conditions of enforcing accidents in dislocation over truth, enforce a situation that denies its own capacity for consciousness, denies its own capacity for wakefulness, denies its own capacity for life. And hence, in submitting to the harmony, the full aspect of the note is freed. In submitting to the archetypal and universal and eternal, the full condition of communion, association, and life and seat and soul and source, above and through the full expression's measure, becomes undivided. And so as the highest state of attainment becomes pious to that which is the continent requirement of the seat and soul and fruition of that which lies at the root and necessity of all functioning, so that greater truth of fulfilled being, of undivided subtlety, of living life, calls for us with no alienated, no falsely performed or falsely professed inheritance, to live through us in integrity, sublimity, simplicity, undeviated and integral life and development, which can only ripen to be adequate to this truth and soul and station and margin.